All right. Thank you, Kenna. Hi, everybody. So glad you could join us tonight. We are doing part of a great series that UK has put together for us. They're doing a group of publications for us, and that was in your link that you got, Travel the World Without Leaving Your Kitchen. So that's what we're going to do tonight. And of course, tonight we're doing Germany. So just a little bit about me. I am one of the FCS agents here in Kenton County. I have not been to Germany. I think I need to maybe ask to do that for work purposes, right? But I feel like a pretty strong German heritage on both sides of my family. My grandma was a great German cook, and I just have a lot of interest in it. So I have a lot of information to share with you, and I hope you're going to benefit from all that tonight. So, Kenna, if you can go ahead and put that map up for us. We're going to just talk just a little bit about Germany itself as we get started, just a little bit about the country, and then some of the information in general about the foods. Okay.
Yep. Hopefully I can.
Okay.
A few seconds.
Sure. It's a coming.
Everybody see a map?
We see it. Absolutely. Thank you. So there is our map of Germany. It's the big yellow country there on that particular map. If it's not showing up real good for you. As you probably know, Germany is located in Central Europe. It's located between the Netherlands and Poland. As far as landmass, it's slightly smaller than the state of Montana. And it's got wonderful food, and it is definitely more than sauerkraut. I've done a lot of reading, and there's an expression called Hearty Folk, Hearty Fare. And it's because of German food being very practical and economical ways to make food that can be prepared for over a long period of time so that the families could work outside back when everybody did so as part of their necessity, and make it economical and use many, many parts of particular foods. And then, of course, a lot of the other foods are just strongly preserved that you know. Pickled and sauerkrauts and all those other wonderful things that can be made ahead and eaten at a later time. So if you glance at that map a little bit more, it is also influenced by the surrounding counties. So to the north, you've got Poland and you've got Scandinavian countries. And so therefore that part of Germany has more seafood, meat specialties, ham and sausage, those kind of things. But as you can imagine, you're surrounded by the water there in the north, and so you're going to take advantage of that seafood. So it's not all sausages. The southwest, as you can see, is right there next to France, excuse me. So of course they get a little more influence from the French cooking. And then in the south part, which is close to Switzerland and Austria, you have more, that's where you get really more traditionally into noodles instead of potatoes, those kind of things. So it really does vary, but it's just a neat thing. And we're going to try a couple different things tonight. Kenna's going to put up one more slide for you on some books that I used. There's an author, Don Heinrich Tolzmann. And these are just two of the books that he has put together. Dr. Tolzmann is a retired University of Cincinnati professor, and he is also retired, but was the director of the German American Studies program for UC, and is the former curator of the German American collection at the University of Cincinnati Libraries. So he has written, those are just two of the books, The German American Experience, Cincinnati's German Heritage. I also have just two other ones, Covington's German Heritage and Kentucky's German Pioneer. If you go to anywhere to look at books, I looked at Amazon just to see what they had, and he's got even many more of those books available. So, they come in all shapes and sizes, but they're really great. And he just has a lot of background information about the settlers, why they came here, what was going on with them, and then their influence on many things in our area. So just a little more information I want to share with you tonight. We're not doing a whole lot of history, but we do know that Northern Kentucky and the Cincinnati area is very strong German influence. It has been said that the biggest wave of settlers from Germany came in like the 1870s. But from 1830 to 1870, that's when it really started. And Cincinnati and Milwaukee and Indianapolis kind of formed this little triangle of where a lot of those settlers came. So, and then of course they brought family, and that's exactly what happened with my family coming to this area, and probably a lot of you as well. So but a little bit later on, after we do our cooking, we are going to talk about some other foods and some other influences of Germany in our area and with some of our traditions. But I think we want to cook because that's why we're here tonight. Okay. So as I said, you've got the publication. The publication has not only the 2 recipes we're going to make tonight, but several others that we'll talk about a little bit later on. So we are making schnitzel and spätzle. Okay, so we are going to start with our schnitzel. A schnitzel is basically just a cutlet. Traditionally, they were made out of veal. Most of the time now, they're made out of pork, just because it's a little more readily available. A lot of people kind of like it better, and it's less expensive too. I'm going to get my pork out of the refrigerator. So if you're cooking along, you want to get the things that you're going to need to get your pork out. So basically, the pork, your eggs, and then the things that we're going to use to coat that tenderloin, or excuse me, or the pork. I'm going to talk about 2 ways of doing pork. So I'm just going to talk about this. Don't want to rush anybody, but I'll kind of go through these, and it'll give you some time to get your items together. I have 2 different pork products here, and either of them were fine, and they were both mentioned in your list of ingredients. I've got just some boneless pork chops here, pork loin chops. They're pretty economical. These are probably about a ½ inch thick, little bit of fat on them. You could trim that, or you could leave it on. I'm just going to leave it on for tonight. Those are pretty ready to go as we get into our pounding process. But I've also got a pork tenderloin here, and I like them both. Pork tenderloin is a little more costly, but I was able to buy, this is about a 1 pound pork tenderloin, and it does really well too. And we just really, really like pork tenderloin. It was about $7.50. This is going to give me 4 cutlets out of it, and that's 2 meals for my family. So I'm going to now prepare some of both of them so you can see how this works. So I do need a knife for my tenderloin. What I'm going to do basically is go ahead and cut that up into 4 pieces, because like I said, it's about a pound, and I want 4-ounce pieces. Now we're going to be real careful tonight about raw pork. So I'm done with this plate. Not going to use that anymore because it's raw. All right. Now tenderloins, you probably already know, are always a little bit thinner on the ends. And I want to try to get 4 fairly equal pieces out of here. So of course, I'm just going to start by cutting it in half. And since this is a little bit smaller down here, I'm going to cut it not quite in half. I'm going to cut it a little more on this end so I can get that out of there. And same thing with this. This is a little bigger than this, so I'm not going to quite cut it in half. I'm going to give a little more to the end piece. You know, not essential, but that keeps our pieces to be a little closer in size. So tenderloin or just loin, here we are, ready to go. In your list of items to have for the class, I mentioned a cutting board, and I said, would if possible, the reason that we just prefer that is just to keep this from slipping around. So we can do this a couple different ways. You might prefer to put it in a plastic bag or around plastic, but that does make it a little bit slippery. I'm gonna do it both ways, all right? So we're just gonna put two of these in here. And that'll fit pretty good. Plenty of paper towels tonight. All right. Or I'll just gonna take this nice little tenderloin, this nice little center cut here, and just do that right on the cutting board. Now, this is gonna be, of course, raw pork. So when I'm done with this wooden cutting board, I'm gonna clean it really well. I can sanitize it if I'm gonna be, of course, if I'm gonna do anything with fresh produce or anything like that. So I could just kind of squirt it with the bleach and water solution that we can help you with if you need. But anyway, just gonna keep that really clean. So basically, I'm just gonna pound this thin. That's what I want. So a cutlet is just a thin, boneless piece of meat. So I have my kind of all-purpose thing. I've got a pounder here. There's a tenderizer end of that. I don't want to deal with that today. I don't really want to push on that. I don't want to tear my plastics. I'm just going to use the flat end. Also mentioned in your list that you can use a rolling pin. You want to use a rolling pin like this if you have one. If you have this type, they're fine, but these do have like ball bearings in here and they want to try to keep that balance. And it could ruin your rolling pin by pounding of that. So this would be preferable if you have it. I've also seen a chef take just a big pot that had a really nice flat bottom and just use that too, because he was saying the surface area, of course, was much bigger and it was easier. Whatever you want to do. All right. So here we are. If it is slippery, you can always take moist cloth or paper towel, and that also can help that from slipping on you if you're having any issues with that. Basically, what we're going to do right now is just pound that tenderloin or that pork loin. You want them to be between 1/4 and an 1/8 inch thin. So you want them thin, you don't want them tearing. So, if you're concerned, it's better to go on a little thicker side, but we don't want to be any thicker than 1/4 inch. All right. So with this guy, you're really going to see this is really going to grow. Talk about, taking out your aggression, and you can, but also we don't want to tear. So just kind of, right. Of course, it's going to spread.
It's a good way to relieve all that stress you had from the day. Pound away, right, Kathy?
All that rain, oh my gosh. So you can see this really grows. You feel like it's not a very big piece of meat, but it's certainly.
Kathy was asked if you would ever pound it in the cross direction, or do you always go one direction?
I don't know that it matters. We just want to get it we want it to be consistent. So, probably I usually start in the center and work my way out. I have gone to the edges if I needed to. Does that answer that? I want it a little thinner. I can tell it's about 1/4 inch.
I'm trying to see if I see pounders working. A lot of people have their camera off.
It's probably muting all this noise. Okay.
Someone's asking, would you go more cross grain for tenderness?
I don't. I just kind of go at it where it needs it, because I'm not really doing this to tenderize, because pork tenderloin's really tender anyway, and the pork loin's pretty tender. I'm just doing it to flatten it out. Okay, so I just kind of go and I look if there's an area that's a little thicker. Okay. So you can see how much this has grown compared to what we started with over there. All right. Now, I'll also do them in the bag, so you can see that as well. That it works fine. Then, you know, less mess to clean up. But I just wanted to show that. I like to do it in the bag instead of just a piece of plastic because it's contained for me. See where we are. See, I feel like this is still a little too thick. So I'm going to put that back in there. And on this one, this end is thick. I can even just tell by looking at it. This is the hardest part of the whole thing.
Kathy, could you pound the day before?
On the day before. You can also totally prepare these. You can go ahead and coat them and freeze them. And I have done that. I'll show that to you too. But yeah, you could use the day before would be fine. Hour before, whatever. I thought about it so you didn't have to listen to this, but if we're good, if everyone's gonna be cooking with me, here we go pounding. All right, this is still a little thick for me. All right. Get the other guy out. That's all we're gonna do. I'm gonna do 3. So, you know, in a normal pound of pork, you would get 4 cutlets out of there. 4 quarter pound. So there they are. Just gonna put this away. And we can have more pork tomorrow. Okay. I'm gonna wash my hands because of the raw pork.
Hey, Kathy, someone says, let your kids do the pounding.
There you go. If somebody's like not behaving, you're like, okay, I got a nice job for you, right? Okay, right now, oops, I'm gonna move it one more time. I got these overlapping. I'm gonna salt and pepper these. So that's why I had said to you, just have your salt and pepper separate because we're gonna be handling the raw meat. You might, you know, like I'm having to remove these. And so I just put a little bit in my containers. And I'm not trying to show off, but this is really a good way to salt and pepper if you hold your hand a little bit higher. It works a little better. You can do it a little bit more evenly. You can control it. Some people will put the salt and pepper in their coating, but it doesn't do quite as well. So there's my salt. Then I'm going to discard the rest of that and my pepper. We like pepper in our house. If you don't have to. All right. I'm going to let those sit for a minute because we're going to mix up our spätzle right now. So I'm just going to put those off to the side. We'll come back to them very shortly because this won't take long at all. So if you're making spätzle with us, you'll need to get your milk and your eggs out. and all your other ingredients, your flour and your salt. Okay. I don't have like those TV shows with the cleaning crew. I guess they haven't shown up yet, right? So on our spätzle, you notice I'm saying spätzle. The recipe, it looks like spatzel, and that's what we might call it in Kentucky, right? That's what I call it, but that's the real pronunciation is spätzle. When I was a young girl, my grandmother always made homemade noodles, and she always made homemade dumplings. It's the exact same principle. She didn't have a spätzle pan like we're going to use tonight. It makes it a lot easier, but she was really good at it, of course, because she had a lot of experience in it. And she was able to just take that dough and cut it right into boiling water and have these nice little pieces that gave us these wonderful dumplings. But it's the same thing. And luckily for me, there's a pan to make it, to make mine look as good as hers. So, a spätzle is basically just an airy, eggy dumpling or noodle, but usually noodles are rolled. That's the big difference. They usually have more flour in them. They're rolled out, and grandma would do that, roll them real thin, roll them up, cut them, let them dry. They were fabulous. The spätzle, again, is the same principle. So we're going to start with our recipe. Your recipe calls for 3 cups of all-purpose flour. I have found for me 2.5 cups is best. So that's what I'm going to start with. One of the nice things about a recipe like this is we can add more flour or more liquid if we need to. So I'll be able to show you what your batter or your dough should look like, so that you get a good product. So basically, I'm going to get my dry measuring cup out, and I'm gonna just put this in here. You know, we wanna, if we go digging it in there, you know, we can really easily overfill our cups. So I just kind of spoon it in there, and then I'm gonna even it off. So there's my first cup. This is just all-purpose flour, not self-rising or anything. We don't really want any leavening in this. It gets its leavening from the eggs that are in there. 2, and then like I said, I'm going to do a half. So you may want to start with that. The times that I did it with 3 cups, of course, you know, I kept with my same amount of liquid, and they were just a little too firm. I could have gone back and put more liquid in, but I was experimenting and seeing what would work out. I will say, of course, Grandma didn't leave any recipes, and she knew what to do, right? She put in the flour, she put in the salt, she put in the eggs. You know, that's what she did. I even just was looking. I have some of her old recipes, and wasn't one for dumplings. I had one that I had written out, and it just said like 2 cups of flour and eggs and enough liquid till you get what you need, and that was the equivalent of it. So anyway, there's my 2.5 cups of flour. I'm going to put a 1/2 teaspoon of salt in here now. Got a different container of salt, not the salt that I used on the fork. Oops. Do this over my sink so I don't overdo it. It also says optional is a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. That is not something my family put in it, and so I don't, but you certainly can. That isn't a traditional recipe. That's the beauty of doing it your way. So I'm just gonna kind of stir up. Woo, geez. That's why we were an apron too. My flour and my salt. It calls for 3 eggs. All right, and I'm just gonna break them in here. I want to make sure that they're good eggs. I don't know about you, I've had, I think, 2 rotten eggs in my whole life. That was 2 that I will never forget. And you don't really want to risk dumping a rotten egg into your other nice ingredients that you have. And also too, I can see, make sure I don't have any shells that got in there. So there's my eggs. Right. Clean myself up a little bit. And then I'm just going to slightly mix this together, just kind of break up those eggs. Because as you see, our other ingredient is some kind of liquid. A half to 3/4 of a cup of water. I've seen whole milk. There are other things people have used beer, people have used sparkling water. I have 1% milk because that's what I have in my house and it has worked just fine. So this doesn't have to be completely mixed up. This isn't a real fragile dough. I'm just breaking up those eggs. And then I'm gonna go ahead and pour my milk in. I do have 3/4 of a cup here. I'm gonna put most of it in and I'm gonna see what I end up with. So this is the basics of any of these kind of doughs or noodles. They don't usually use whole grains. This is, as we make half our grains whole, this is not our whole grain food for the day. Another thing I'm going to encourage you to do, if you haven't already, is have a nice sink of hot soapy water, because